Well, first of all, thank you very much to the IE University, Isabela del Alcázar, Santiago Íñiguez, and the Sustainable Development Goals Club, Elisa Hicks, Lynn Yates, Raquel Aceu, Angel Rodriguez, for your invitation to the first ever edition of the Sustainability Week. It's a pleasure being here with all of you, sharing the learnings and experience acquired through my expeditions. And congratulations, I want to give the congratulations to the IE University for running a sustainability strategy commit to a responsible use of water, paper, transport, energy, plastics, investing 10 million euros in its 10-year challenge campaign and its commitment to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. So during my talk, I will divide the talk in 3 blocks. The first one, I will explain what I've seen through my expeditions, what I've seen with my own eyes about the climate change. The second block, I will talk about solutions. There are good news. There are solutions to all these problems we are facing actually about the climate change. And the third block, I will end with some reflections that I think they are very proper in the moments we are living right now about the coronavirus pandemic and the future. We are living a crisis moment, but also a future full of opportunities. So, well, as you said, my name is Nacho Dean. I'm the first person in history who has traveled around the world on foot and connect the 5 continents by swim. But the most important thing is the purpose I undertake my expeditions, and it's the conservation of the planet. Is to send a message of nature conservation. From 2013 to 2016, I walked around the entire planet, an expedition that took me to walk through 4 continents, 31 countries, and 33,000 kilometers to document the climate change. From 2018 to 2019, I linked the 5 continents swimming to raise awareness for the oceans. This is the map with the itinerary I follow during my expedition around the world on foot. 21st of March 2013, I make my first step in the Puerta del Sol, in the kilometer 0 in Madrid, walking, heading to the east by Alcalá Street. And I walk through Spain, France, Italy, Slovenia, Croatia, Serbia, Bulgaria, Turkey, Georgia, Armenia, Iran, India, Nepal, Bangladesh, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Australia, Chile, Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador, Panama, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, Salvador, Mexico, United States of America, Portugal, and 3 years later, I reached the same point that I lived 3 years before, by the opposite street, by the opposite side, by the west, and reached the same point after walking through 4 continents, 31 countries, and 33,000 kilometers to document climate change. I want to share with you 3 learnings I acquired during my expedition. This picture belonged to the crossing of the Andes Mountains from Chile to Bolivia, 5,000 meters high on level sea. The first learning I want to share with all of you is that the planet is not so big. Maybe it sounds weird, but it's a learning based on my own experience. I know the size of the planet. I know how much effort it costs to reach Australia on foot, almost in the opposite side of the planet, and come back home by the other side by using the same mean of transport, I mean on foot. So I've got in my mind the size of the planet, and I can say it's not so big, so we should take care of it. The second learning I want to share with you is that the humanity is good. Sometimes we watch TV, we watch the news, they are all bad news. We are afraid almost of living or traveling to different countries, but you have to take into account that traveling on foot is the slowest and the risky mean of transport. If humanity were bad, my journey, my expedition would have been impossible. I've walked through Buddhist, Hinduism, Muslim, Christians, indigenous countries, and everywhere people support me. So it's a message I want to send back after my expedition that human works. And the third learning I want to share with you is the great potential we have physically and mentally when we focus all our energy in one goal and we fight hard for it. We work step by step, stroke by stroke, as I saw in the Nemo expedition, to fight for our goals and for objectives. So we've got an amazing potential. And I encourage everyone to explore and to go beyond their own limits. So during my walk around the world, I witnessed with my own eyes such an amazing amount of plastic and litter that there are everywhere in all the beaches all around the planet. So I start to think about the need to embark on a new expedition to raise awareness for the oceans. Every day we listen to news about the plastic pollution, the rise of the level sea because of the global warming, the loss of biodiversity because overfishing, but the sea, the oceans are the great forgotten. Imagine that occupying more than 70% of the planet, we call Earth what it should be called planet water. So I've been around the world on foot, but I have a pending debt with the ocean. I decide to connect the 5 continents swimming to raise awareness for the oceans. This is the map of the expedition, the Nemo expedition. 8th of June 2018, the World Ocean Day, I crossed the Gibraltar Strait from Spain to Morocco, connecting Europe to Africa. The 1st of July, the same year, 2018, I swam from Castellorizo, Greek island, to Turkish population called Kaz, connecting Europe to Asia. In September, I crossed swimming the Bering Strait from Alaska to Russia over the Arctic Circle with the water 3 Celsius degrees, quite cold, almost frozen, connecting America to Asia. Then in November, I swam the Bismarck Sea. It's absolutely a different sea from the Bering Sea. It's 30 degrees. There are crocodiles, there are saltwater crocodiles, sharks, jellyfishes, connecting Asia to Oceania. And the last strait was the Aqaba Gulf in the Red Sea, swimming from Egypt to Jordan, connecting Africa to Asia. Well, the place where I've seen in the most palpable way the effects of the global warming is in the Bering Strait. The Bering Strait, as I said before, is located on the Arctic Cycle. It's 80 kilometers from Alaska to Russia, but just in the middle, there are 2 islands. They are the Diomede Islands. The big Diomede belong to Russia. The little Diomede belong to Alaska, United States, America. What I did was swimming from the little Diomede to the big Diomede. It's 4 kilometers. Between both islands, it passes the date line. So the American island is in one day. You see the other island in front of you, just almost 4 kilometers, but that island, the big Diomede, is another country, is Russia, is another continent, is Asia, but at the same time, it's another day, it's tomorrow. So it was like swimming up until tomorrow and then come back to yesterday. It was a little bit strange. I was living there with Inuits, with Eskimo culture. The Inuits are a hunting economy. They depend on hunting to survive. But due to the global warming, the species they hunt, like seals, like walruses, like polar bears, they are going north looking for cold, and new invasive species are appearing coming from the south. And also in winter, the few years ago, the strait was absolutely frozen. You could go walking from America to Russia and in the same way come back walking. But nowadays, it almost doesn't get frozen. These pieces of ice floating between rivers of sea. So it's affecting in a very deep way to their hunting culture and their survival way of life. So now they have to look for different resources and different ways to live. So here is where I see the effects of the global warming. Actually, there are new maritime routes, new commercial maritime routes going through the Bering Strait instead of going through the Panama Channel and the Suez Channel, connecting the Pacific Ocean, Asia, America to Europe. And this new route is shorter, maybe between 1 week or 10 days shorter than the other ones I talk about. And a few years ago, the United States tried to buy Greenland. Greenland belongs to Denmark. And it's because now, due to the global warming, all the countries are trying to find good resources of gas, of oil, of diamonds that they are appearing in this part of the globe. If you see this graphic from the you can see there where is it? Yeah, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. You can see that in this century, Greenland will lose more ice than what it has actually done during the last 12,000 years. These are predictions coming from scientific research, and it's obviously, you can see in a very graphic way, the loss of ice in Greenland. Well, this is me crossing the Bering Strait, swimming from the little Diomede to the big Diomede. It took me 1 hour and 11 minutes. And when I reached the Russian island, I was almost frozen. I had the feeling that I couldn't make even one more stroke. Well, there were a lot of people waiting for me, the sons of the Inuits and teachers from the school. So it was a very warming, welcoming. I have to say that here, the logistic is quite different from the Bering Strait, from the Gibraltar Strait. In the Gibraltar Strait, there are 2 boats, one in front of you, showing you the course you have to swim, because when you are in the middle of the ocean, you have no references. And another, a small one, very close to you, they give you assistance, they give you food, water. Here in the picture, as you can see, there are no boats. And that's because the boat I had belongs to the Inuit. And I think they leave me alone and they were hunting seals. So I feel quite afraid. It's not a very deep strait. It's only 80 meters deep strait. So you know if there is an animal just below you, it's very close to you. So another agent causing the climate change is the pollution. Well, climate change, I have to say, has always existed, but in a very long period of time, of 1,000 years. Nowadays, as a consequence of the human action, this climate change is happening in a very short period of time and with devastating consequences. So I think that instead of climate change, we should talk about climate emergency. As I say, one of the agents causing this climate emergency is the pollution. Pollution, first of all, everyone listen to it, is plastics. The the second swimming traverse of the Nemo expedition connecting Europe to Asia. I thought it's gonna be in the Bosphorus Strait in Istanbul, in Turkey, but due to the pollution and the maritime traffic, I decided to go to a second option, connecting this picture, this island in the picture belongs to Greece, is Castel Lorizo, and the coast we see in farther is Turkey. There are 7 kilometers from the Greek island to the Turkish coast. I take part, I participate in an international event of open water swimming. So there we swam like maybe 150 swimmers, sharing our passion for the open water swimming and our love for the oceans. It took me 2 hours to connect Greece with Turkey, Europe with Asia, and I was in the first position. It was nothing planned, but I was very close to win the race. So it was an amazing way to end the second connection. I have to say that Turkey, according to scientific research of the United Nations and the World Wildlife Foundation, WWF, an international environmental organization, it's the most plastic polluted country in the Mediterranean area. But we should pay attention that these plastics are not, most of them are not thrown in Turkey. They are thrown in different countries of the Mediterranean, and the currents bring them up to this place in the Eastern Mediterranean. The second most plastic polluted country in the Mediterranean area is Spain. So we should realize that the global action is needed. We all have to do things in our countries because, as I will explain later, everything we do, it has an impact, maybe in different places of the planet. Another agent of pollution is the carbon dioxide. Not only plastics or not only chemical liquids we throw to the rivers, it's the carbon dioxide. There is so much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere that it's polluting the oceans. We used to think that the lung of the planet is the Amazon jungle, the Amazon forest, but the lungs of the planet are the oceans. The oceans are the ones who emit more oxygen into the atmosphere and the ones who capture more carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. There is so much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere that it's causing the acidification of the oceans. What does it mean? For example, we all listen about the bleaching of the corals. They are turning into white, they are dying. That's because the carbon dioxide getting into the atmosphere. For example, some species like crustaceans, they have problems to make their cells. So we must think also about that. So that is me crossing the second swimming traverse from Greece to Turkey. And then the third problem I document through my expeditions is the biodiversity laws. According to reports from the United Nations and environmental organizations such as WWF, in the last 50 years, we have lost more than 60% of the world biodiversity. It's estimated more or less than around 200 species are extinguished daily as a consequence of the stress to which we are subjecting the ecosystems and the over-exploitations of their resources. Here you can see a picture of the Amazon jungle. That's one of the main reasons for this alarming loss of biodiversity is the degradations of the habitats. And the second reason for this lost biodiversity is the over-exploitation of for example, the fishes in the oceans. Do you know what does the Earth Overshot Day means? Have you heard about it before? The Earth Overshot Day. It's the day of the year in which we already consume all the resources that nature is able to generate in that year. From that day, all we consume is ecological debt. What does it mean? It means deforestation, it means pollution, loss of biodiversity, and extinction of species. Since 1970, humanity consumes every year more resources than nature is capable of generating that year. And as time goes on, the Earth Overshot Day is advancing with every time, every year that is passing. At present, in 2020, the Earth Overshot Day is 20th of July, 29 of July. And from that day on, we are consuming the resources of the coming generation. Then we have to see all this scenario in a global population growth. According to the United Nations, the global population estimate by 2050, it will be 9.7 billion people on Earth, and for 2100, it will be close to 11 billion, 11.2 billion. So we have to pay attention that the population is growing and the resources are going down. They are limited. But as I said before, there are good news. I bring good news. There are solutions for this scenario. First of all, to fight against the carbon dioxide and the pollution of the atmosphere, we have to use the alternative energies to fight against the global warming. I mean, I talk about solar energy, I talk about the wind energy, the tides from the ocean, the geothermal. So there are solutions. Even more than alternative energies, also to fight against the pollution, we have to use a responsible consumption. What I mean, I mean in our daily habits, in what we consume, where it comes from, who made it, what is it made of. So, for example, energy efficiency of buildings, so that we use the warmth and we use the heat, and we don't lose energy trying to heat the buildings. To reduce the number of flights per year, for example, to organize sustainability days, I mean, plant trees, cleaning beaches, photography contests, to go walking, to go by bicycle, to use the public transport, or maybe to use electric cars. So everything we do has an impact on the planet. What the kind of tourism we do, what things we buy, what it's made of. Of course, consume local and seasonal, and try to minimize the consumption of single-use plastics. Everything is made of plastic, and sometimes we go to the supermarket, everything is covered by plastic, so try to avoid those single-use plastics. To avoid the loss of biodiversity, try to consume products made according to standards and certified of sustainable production and management. How we implement these things, even more here in Spain, that we are rich in solar energy. How we implement all these things? For me, it's necessary education, and well, education, of course, in schools, in institutes, in universities, companies, and obviously through media. The climate emergency should open all the TV programs and all the newspapers all over the world. That's why I appreciate so much the new sustainability strategy and the 10-year challenge campaign launched by the IE. We need a new generation of thinkers and doers, responsible leaders commit with a sustainable development sustainable leadership with service vocation and making a positive impact in the society. So education is the first key pillar to change society and to make a positive impact in the world. And I think our values are fully aligned. The second pillar is legislation. I think we should pay, we can't ignore the responsibility of the government changing the rules and to promote a sustainable development, and obviously to punish those activities that cause a damage on the environment. The third key pillar is innovation. And I think our values are also aligned about innovation. I'm talking about sustainable technological innovation. In constantly changing world, we are living nowadays liquid times, so changing environments. That's one of the hard things of the moments we are living right now, is how to face these changing times and this uncertainty in front of us. But we are an intelligent species, we have intelligence, so we must use that intelligence to create technology, but that technology must be a tool at our service. What I mean that put that technology for a sustainable development. And now we are facing a technology tsunami. Now there are so many changes coming that we must use those changes to promote a sustainable development. And the fourth key pillar are the finance. Socially responsible investments are the most effective and powerful means of transport to transform the world towards a green and circular economy, and at the same time, transfer the field of finance the ethical commitment to invest and consume with awareness and responsibility, promoting criteria of environmental sustainability, justice, and solidarity, as well as transparency and good governance. We cannot continue to allow this type of abuse of the planet's natural resources for the simple fact of financial gains. We have to put humanity and biodiversity, the Earth, the planet, in the center, in the middle, and create a total financial system which includes the environmental cost, putting the biosphere and the humanity in the middle. So for me, those are the four key pillars to transform the course that we are following. Well, as well as, or in addition to my expeditions and all the document work I do, I also do a divulgation work. That's why, even more than talks and conference, I've written 2 books. By the moment, they are in the English market. The first one, Libre y Salvaje, is about my expedition around the world on foot. And the second book, La Llamada del Océano, it's about my expedition, that's the expedition that took me to connect the 5 continents by swim. Of course, well, I talked before, I gave a conference for the Bank of Spain or for banks like WVA or, well, in many congresses. In fact, recently, I've been in the South Summit. That's where I had the pleasure to meet Isabella del Alcázar and to know Maria Benjumea. I'm ambassador of a few international environmental organizations as Marine Stewardship Council, focus on the marine protection through the sustainable fishery, and also the Alliance Step by Water. They are focused on the Sustainable Development Goal number 6, is about to protect and preserve the water. Without water, there is nothing else. So even more in Spain, that now we are facing desertification, and every year the temperatures are breaking the records. They are going high and high. So we must be very conscious of how we use and manage the water. It's the most valuable resource in the world. Well, I would like to finish. I think I've been speaking for half an hour. I'd like to finish sharing with all of you some reflections. of my expeditions and the times we are actually living. Well, after walking around the world and linking the continent swimming, you feel the planet as a immense living being where everything is connected and where we belong to. Everything is connected. I mean the atmosphere, I mean the oceans, I mean the currents, I mean the soils, I mean the biodiversity, humanity. We belong to the picture. We are part of nature. And we must be conscious that what we make to nature, we are making to ourselves. And I think that's one of the most important reflections of the times we are living right now, is how deeply connected is the health of the planet with the health of humanity. Of course, we need to adopt a global vision. I mean, sometimes we used to think only in what surround us, but we must have a global vision. So we understand all the phenomena and all the processes that affect us. So we will be able to react in advance, having a global vision. And another reflection is to change from the short term to the long term vision. I mean, we are always thinking in the short term, but we must start companies and projects with a long-term sustainable vision. Sustainable not only from the environment point of view, but I mean from the time point of view. Projects that they last in time. Well, another reflection I want to share with you is that economy and ecology, they share the same root. Eco, that from the Greek, it means oikos, it means house, home. Economy is how we manage the resources of our home. Ecology is the science that study the relationships between the living beings and their environment. So until economy and ecology go hand by hand, we are going by the wrong way, because it's a nonsense that the economic model that we follow is destroying the environment and the planet where we are living. And the last reflection I'd like to share with you, they say that when astronauts travel into the space, they undergo a radical shift in consciousness. At that moment, when they see the Earth as a pale blue dot suspended in the vast and dark immensity of space, a fragile little oasis full of life floating in the space, protected by an atmosphere thin as a sheet of paper, they feel that there are no borders, that the conflicts that divide us, they are not so important. And the need to create a planetary society with the common goal of protecting this pale blue dot becomes an obvious need. This change in consciousness is called the perspective effect. As the Apollo 8 astronaut William Anders reached, when he reached the moon, he said, "We did all this way to reach the moon, and the most important thing is that what we discovered is the Earth." So I want to say thank you to all of you. And now, if you want, Angel, we start the Q&A, and I'm ready. I'm here for you to answer all those questions you want to know.
Thank you very much, Nacho, for this marvelous presentation. Your insights are really inspiring. I said personally, And I absolutely agree with you. There are pillars: action, legislation, innovation, and we live in liquid times that we must put our initiatives, laws, and technology for promoting sustainability around ideas such as circular economy, environmental justice, and for governments. Okay, so now we're going to proceed to do the Q&A that we're waiting for. So we suggest the audience to type the questions on the questions and answers chat that you may find in the lower part of your computer. So we already have questions. So for example, Natso, first one, when and why did you decide to take this challenge on? How did you prepare yourself mentally for them?
Yeah, well, it was around 2012. I was walking by the mountains, and I feel so good reaching places by my own feet and in contact with nature that I said, hey, instead of being just for a few days or a few weeks and always return back home, why not walking around the world? Why not dreaming big? But well, and of course, as a fully commit person with environment and the nature preservation, I decide to dedicate this expedition to document the climate change and to raise awareness for the nature conservation. But one thing is having ideas, and absolutely a different thing is taking decisions. So it took me 2 years to take the decision. Um, you have to, well, there are fears that you have to face. First of all, it's a long and risky journey. You don't know if you will come back, and that's it. And if you come back, you don't know if you will be able to adapt again to society after watching and witness so many different things and culture and landscape. So that was the first fear. The second fear I had, you have to make a great detachment exercise. You have to leave everything. You have to leave your job, your home, your parents, your friends. You have to leave your material belongings, and you have to throw away all your fears. I mean, because sometimes we pay more attention or we value more the comfort, the safety, the accommodation, instead of another values like to entrepreneur, the take risk, and the passion of being alive. And the third risk I had to face is that I knew there were many people traveling by bicycle, by car, by motorbike, by plane, but I didn't know anyone traveling on foot. So I was going into an unknown territories, and I had no examples. So it took me 2 years to take the decision. And then I went into all the preparatives. I'm not sure maybe if that's another question but it took me 9 months to prepare everything. And that's why, and that's when I decided to go on this expedition.
Thank you very much, Nacho. So another person asked in the chat, in the general chat, I like a lot your reflections on interconnectedness and how the planet is not as big as we think. Can you share with everyone the facts on plastic thrown in one country that are found elsewhere in the planet due to current winds and so on?
Yeah, you mean in what country I've seen the most polluted country by plastics, or what place?
I think it's more or less the questions like that. And she's referring also to the case of Turkey, how
Yeah,
plastic moves along the currents to one country.
yeah, I'm going to go into the chat. Yeah, can you share everyone the facts of plastic thrown like one? Yeah, well, of course, that's very related to the global vision I'm talking about before. We must think globally. Of course, we act locally, but we must think globally. Why? Because what we do here has an impact in a different region of the planet. And a very clear example is this one about plastics and Turkey. It's maybe plastics thrown in Italy, thrown in Libya. The currents move them and bring them up to the Turkey coast. So we have that now Turkey is the most plastic polluted country in the Mediterranean. Of course, you have to work on the education and the culture. The second one, as I said before, is Spain. But in the same way that when I was talking about the Bering Strait and the global warming and it's melting, that's because the activity happening in different countries and different regions of the planet. Now we are facing a so fast melting of the Arctic North Pole, the Antarctica, the glaciers in the mountains, Greenland, and that's because of all the activity and all the carbon dioxide we are throwing into the atmosphere in different places. So plastic, carbon dioxide, and everything we do, that's what I want to emphasize, that everything is connected. We live in a planet where everything is connected and where everything we do has an impact in different places of the world. We must make like a ecological switch in our minds and think globally.
Yes, we need to do these environmental switch, and this goes perfectly with the next question in the chat that someone said, what do you think we can do on a small scale in our day-to-day if you had to give us one tip?
Well, I've gone around the world on foot, so I encourage everyone to try to go walking to unreached places. It's, of course, is the slowest mean of transport, so it means you must be owner of your time and your space, because we are always rushing, we are always running. It seems we don't own, we don't belong, we don't have our time. But I encourage everyone to at least to use I mean, like sustainable means of transport instead of walking, going by bicycle, going by public mean of transport, electric cars, electric motorbikes. So that's a very simple thing we can do. For example, another one I said before, maybe you could start like sustainable days and go to the mountain and plant trees. Or maybe one day you can go as a group of people, go to the beach, well, not here in Madrid, but go to the mountains or to the forest or a park, wherever, and to clean that area. The clothes we buy, the fashion industry is the second most polluting industry in the world. So we do politics with our acts, with our behavior. There is no need to put a paper in a box every 4 years. We do politics with our actions. So what you buy, what is it made of, who made it, where it come from. So try to buy clothes made from plastic and fishery nets taken from the ocean. I have a pair of shoes made with plastics made from the ocean, taken from the ocean. I've got a jacket also made. There are brands, there are fashion brands who nowadays they are working on sustainable clothes. And that's another example. For example, when you go shopping, try to bring bags from your home instead of asking for plastic bags in the supermarket. Just take them from home. Try to buy the less processed plastic products as possible, not only because they are more sustainable, but they used to be also more healthy. As less processed as possible, the healthier the food will be. And well, there are so many things. In winter, instead of heating on the heater, try to put a jersey, try to do some exercise. There are a lot of things, of course.
Absolutely, there are many ways we can transition to a more sustainable lifestyle, as we discussed with Isabella, and we should do it step by step because there are many ways we can do it.
That's the good thing. That's the good thing, that there are many options. There are no excuses. that's one of the things I try to show with my expedition. There are no excuses. We have the power to create, to build the future we want to see. We have the power to work all together and write history. Don't wait with your arms closed. Just jump into action. There are two things you can do against uncertainty. Is doing nothing, and the second one is taking the reins of life and jumping and taking action.
Yes, and if I can add to you, there's no excuse, as you said. For example, people argue that there's lack of time, or maybe it is expensive to be sustainable. No, because we have so many ways of being sustainable. So moving on to Vanessa Allen's question, she said that Nacho, though that was extremely interesting, I agree with you 100%. I had a question about the Earth Overshot Day. You said it was July 29th. Was that just this year, or has it been that day for a few years already? How often does it change?
Yeah, well, thank you for the question. The Earth Overshot Day is from 1970. This day is every day is we reach this day firstly. In 1970 it was in December, but as the 1970s go on, this day was we reached it before. So actually nowadays, more or less, I think in 2018 it was around 29th of July. I don't know right exactly if it's 29th July nowadays in 2020, but it must be maybe 28th of July or maybe the 5th of August, but more or less is those days. So what we should do is to implement sustainable activities. So that day is going back and back and back, and we give time to nature to recover. Because it's very simple. The health of nature is what we take from nature, unless what nature recover and regenerate. So if we leave nature to recover and we take less things from nature, as a sustainable development goals tell us, we will take that Earth Overshot Day further and further until we get into balance. That's for me sustainability. Sustainability is what I said, having a global vision, being conscious that everything is connected, changing our mind from the short to the long term, and being in balance, in harmony, in equilibrium with all the resources, the environment, the biodiversity around us.
And moving on to Carmen San's question, she asked you, has the Spanish government, for example, committed ecologically to anything in concrete thanks to your challenge?
Yeah, well, in every country, I've done a lot of interviews. I give talks in universities. I work with NGOs, and I try to work with governments and to leave my footprint. So I think directly, thanks, I think I try to spread this message as far as possible. And I think thanks to my expeditions, I'm showing how the planet, the health of the planet is. And I think that working all together, I add my little support, my little grain for a more sustainable future. But just anything in concrete that the government has made because of my expeditions, I'm not sure. I don't know. But I think, of course, they know about my expeditions and my purpose, the purpose I undertake these journeys. Yeah, I think we all together have to work for a more sustainable future.
For sure, Nacho, and you have worked a lot, and this relates perfectly to the next question. So,
Yeah.
how did you balance your personal life with all you do? This, as you said, is really risky. How did they, for example, your partner, your parents, friends, or maybe if you have children, reacted to this?
Yeah, well, for me, there is a concept, it's very, very valuable. I'm talking about congruence, to be congruent. If you want to be a sustainable and leadership, and you want to be a reference for others, you must be congruent. You must have credibility. You must be authentic one. And you only get that if there is a balance between your private and your public lifestyle. That's why I went around the world on foot and not by plane. If I want to send a message and I want to share some values, I must share them being an example. So that's, well, for me, that's what I love to do. That's my passion. Always uh, guide by an overcoming spirit and the search of excellence. But that's my passion. My passion is to do expeditions. That's my way of life. That's what we are explorers. We all have an explorer DNA. It's in our genetics, it's in our blood. Human being is explorer. We always want to go farther, to go beyond, to reach our limits and to discover the unknown. So that's my way of life. And of course, that's my purpose. It's not only doing expeditions, it's doing expeditions for why I do it for. And it's to raise awareness for the environment conservation. And to know that what you are doing transcend, it's helping to build a better future. It's very, gives me a lot of strength. So of course, it's not easy for your family to know that you are going to travel around the world on foot because it's a long and risky journey. You don't know if you will come back. But for that reason, you must prepare everything. You must be very conscious and talk to the embassies and put the vaccines and all the equipment and manage the media and the social nets and the sponsorships and the health insurance. So you must focus on what you are doing because when the risk is so high, you must be very to pay a lot of attention to all the environment. Now I've been recently father. I have a 6 months old baby. She's a so beautiful girl. She's called Mar. She's called C, as it could be no other way. Sometimes we try to find the meaning of life through our children. We try to give sense to our actions through our children. But when you are so lucky, so privileged, as it's my case, to know what's your mean, I discovered my purpose in life. So my daughter confirmed even more my vision and my purpose. If I'm a fully committed person I love my passion doing expeditions. What a great adventure that having a children, and it's not just a 3 years long expedition, it's just a full life expedition. As a fully committed person with nature conservation, now I have a daughter. I'm even more committed to leave her a more sustainable, a more green, a more healthy planet. So having children and my family encourage me, support me, and they are a reason to keep on fighting for this reason and this purpose.
Well, congratulations, Nacho, for the beautiful girl, for Mar. So, relating this to the next question, what's your next project?
Yeah, that's a very good and interesting question. Well, nowadays, I'm working on 2 documentaries in this mission to spread the message. I've written 2 books, and as I said, the talks, and now I want to jump into the audiovisual world. So I'm working on 2 documentaries. One of them about my walk around the world, the second one about the Nemo expedition. I will publish them in different channels. One of them, I think I'm working a platform like, well, Amazon, Netflix, and the other one maybe I will release on the social nets. So, and I'm preparing a new expedition the sound of the drummer, that will be sailing. Sailing. It's a very ecological mean of transport, and the purpose of this expedition will be the conservation of the ocean. But I want, in the same way, I want to jump into the audiovisual world. I want to make a step also into the scientific world. I will travel with a scientific team, scientific researchers team, because we want to do a scientific research at the end of the expedition about what we've seen, what we've documented in the oceans. So that will be the next expedition, sailing. So pay attention, because in the next months I will give more details.
About the documentary, somebody asks in the chat if we can see it in Netflix Spain, the documentary.
Yeah, well, I'm working on it. So I've got all the expedition film already filmed, but after the expedition and the filming work, you have to work on the editing and the post-production. So now we are working on it.
Perfect.
But for sure, I hope it will be in the, of course, we will see not only in Spain, but all over the world, because these are international expeditions and with an international message.
And because everything is a global project, as you said.
Yeah.
So, Nacho, can you recommend a sustainable fashion brand? And if not fashion brand, but sustainable brands or projects that you know also inspires you?
Yeah, for example, I will share with you, there is a Spanish brand, fashion brand. It's called EcoAlf. You know, maybe you heard about it. It's a very famous sustainable brand. And this one made, that's the jacket I have, I talked to you before, made with fishery nets from the ocean, is from that brand. And for example, you know the Spanish brand El Ganso? El Ganso. Well, it's a Spanish, it's also a very famous brand. It was one of the sponsorships, one of the sponsors of my Nemo expedition. So they made a pair of shoes with fishery nets and plastic recovered from the oceans. So with that, selling those shoes, at the same time you are cleaning the ocean, you were funding my expedition. So I said you, and then there are a lot of projects. For example, I'm here. I see a link about the reforest action. Now we must be conscious that planting trees is the best technology to clean the air, to make forests. It's the home for the biodiversity and animals. Is the best way to fix the grounds and the land. So planting trees, there are a lot of projects. I encourage everyone to at least plant a few trees in their lives. That's the best technology to clean the air and the home for many animals. Also, I know, for example, Marine Stewardship Council, MSC, is a sustainable stamp, sustainable certified, that certifies that the fish taken from the oceans, they are made in a sustainable way. So they guarantee that the environment will be sustainable and the animals living there will be live as long as possible. Because nowadays, one of the problems we have in the oceans is the overfishing, that the oceans are without fishes, so we must buy fish coming from sustainable certified, like the MSC, Marine Stewardship Council. And there are many initiatives. If you investigate, you will find. Now there are no excuses to have a sustainable way of life.
And Nacho, I wanted to ask you personally, that after all what you've seen and experienced, what's your personal definition of sustainability?
Yeah, well, I gave it before. For me, sustainability, it has two acceptions, two different meanings. One of them, but they are deeply related. One of them is related to the environment, to be sustainable, environmentally sustainable. And the other meaning is about time, is being sustainable in time. Is now so for me, the definition of sustainability is related to long-term, forget about short-term, long-term, being sustainable in time is about global action, because everything is linked, and deeply relate with balance, being in balance. If you are not in balance, there are no projects and no companies that will be sustainable. So you must be in balance with your team, you must be in balance with the resources, the environmental resources, and you must be in balance with time. So for me, those key concepts are essential for sustainability: global, long-term, and balance.
Perfect, thank you, Nacho.
And now I want to add something more. Now, the sustainable companies, there are studies that demonstrate that sustainable companies are much more efficient and they are sustainable in time. Now we are living very liquid and changing moments. Now we must be very flexible and being able to adapt to so changing environments. But nowadays, I know that companies are changing their models so that they make a positive impact in society. Nowadays, the companies that don't make a positive impact in the world, they will go through hard times to survive in the market. So now we need, and the companies are going into social models to make a positive impact in society and in the environment. So yeah, that's the times we are going through.
Okay, with this last statement, we're going to finish the Q&A. And so we're closing the opening event. Thank you, Nacho, for sharing with us your unique experiences and perspectives on sustainability and the current situation of the Earth. You're truly an inspiration for the people who aim at thriving the world upon the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development Goals. Yep. And for sure, we've taken a lot of insights from this session, from all the pillars you mentioned, from that we need to switch to this ecological consciousness. Yeah. And to wrap up this opening session with not only Nacho, but Isabella and Santiago, sustainability is not a simple concept, as Nacho has said, but there are many solutions to it. We can transition to a more sustainable lifestyle very easily, and we have to take action worldwide because the world is not that big. We're all interconnected. Along this week, we encourage you to participate in some of the numerous activities that the AI community have organized. For example, today's afternoon, we launched a diversity workshop and also Going Green Access to Knowledge and Be Part of a Sustainable Transformation at 5 p.m. Tomorrow, we'll be tackling the economic pillar that Nacho mentioned is one of the bases because economy and ecology share the same root. Then next, on Wednesday, we're going to tackle the social pillar, which is the base around the economic and the environmental pillar. Finally, on Thursday, the environmental inclusion is going to be the Environmental Inclusion Day. And finally, we will take a look at creating an impact through creativity on Friday, through a perspective more from humanities and arts perspective on sustainability. Our goal is not to only raise awareness on these challenges, but to tackle them, bringing students and alumni together to discuss and find solutions. This is not only a week, this is the beginning to a big reset that starts with you all. So thank you everybody for this marvelous opening session. And we hope we see you soon in the next events. And again, thank you, Nacho, for coming here.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to be the opening keynote speaker of this first ever Sustainability Week edition. And for sure, now it's time not to think about you or me, it's time to think about us. So thank you and see you soon.
See you soon.